I have to tell you a little funny story about that song. So I heard that song when I was on the treadmill running at the gym, and I called her and I went, all right, here's the name of the song, learn it, sing it. That was about 9 months ago. And today, she finally sang it. That was great, really great. And the reason why I wanted her to sing it is very simple, and it's interesting that it ended up on a day where I'm not really the main speaker here today, but it's interesting that it is today because ultimately, I wanted her to sing that song because what you choose to listen to is what sets in motion the direction of your life. Who you choose to believe is what sets in motion the success or non-success that will happen in your life. Because if you believe someone that tells you you're not perfect, or you're not beautiful, or that you can't do it, if you believe any of those things, then guess what? That's the truth of your life. And the next logical thing is, if you're going to believe someone, why don't you decide someone to believe in that actually is making spiritually logical sense? So, I have something to read this morning from this incredible minister, reverend, in Kauai. Her name is Reverend Rita Andriello. Have you heard of her? Yes. She blogged something this morning, and I read it and I went, oh my God, this is like perfect. So I didn't say it that high. It was early. It was probably like, oh my God. So it's called Coming Home. And she said this, coming home means letting go of the idea that I am anything less than perfect. Coming home means relaxing into my true identity and living it. It means taking off all the false demands to be anything but myself. It is authenticity. It means letting go of unruly thoughts that demean me and sitting in the pure purity of the spirit that is me. It is knowing that no matter what, everything is all right and always was all right. So that's what she wrote this morning, and I read that, and I knew what Diane was going to sing, and I had said that I was going to talk today about the next big thing. You know what? The next big thing is coming home to your authenticity, to the truth of who you are. And last night, I have to say, my husband's so smart. He sets these dates for me that I have to meet. And if he didn't set it, I'd spend another 10 years writing Sissy Boy, but I didn't. I actually met a date last night. And the last few weeks have been transformative for me. I don't like to throw around these big things like, oh my God, it was the most. But you know what? Last night was probably, if not one of the most important moments in my life. You guys that were here last night, thank you. Because you shared one of the most important moments of my life, if not the most important. And the reason was because of what Rita wrote. It's about coming home to yourself. Every time I would get on a stage as an actor, it was an out-of-body experience. I would play a character. I'd play them well, but I'd play a character. And I would be acting and singing and dancing, and very often I would get through the performance and I'd be like, whoa, how was that? I hope that was good, because I wasn't there. I'm an artist. I have craft. I have talent. I know what to do. I know how to start, and I know how to finish, and I know everything in the middle is going to be terrific. And I'm present. I'm present as I can be. Last night, something happened that was very different for me. I was in my body the entire time, experiencing it, feeling it, living it, knowing that it was my life, but living it. And I thought to myself, I don't think it will ever be possible for me ever to get on a stage again, no matter what I'm doing, and leave me behind. And that's coming home. And you know why? It's because I finally realized that I am, as Dr. Walker said, I am enough just the way I am, and every way that I am, in every moment as I change. If I'm a little annoyed one day, I am enough in that moment. If I am feeling like something's challenging, I am enough in that moment. If I am feeling like the world is just amazing, I am enough in that moment. And that's what I get to realize, and that's what I get to do. And this morning, Kevin and I decided that we would present a full production of Sissy Boy next spring and really work on it. And that's really what we were looking at. We were looking at, is this something we want to do? And it is. Because I realize I have come home to myself. And I was in the shower this morning, and I heard this little voice saying, "What makes you think this isn't your ministry?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, that works too. Do what you do best." I remember Dr. Walker saying to me, "You know, if you're going to become a minister, you got to get rid of all that acting crap. You got to leave all that behind you." And I said to him, I said, "Yeah, I don't think so." I said, "I think I'm going to be able to do both." He goes, "Both?" He said, "You'll find out you can't." 10 years of ministry, I have tried to keep separating myself from the boy, the man that is the actor, singer, dancer, director, writer, choreographer, producer, book writer, musical, lyricist, songwriter. I play the guitar, I play the piano, I have tried to separate myself from that person. I'm here to tell you today, don't separate yourself from anything that is authentically you. Follow it to its blissful fulfillment, and then you'll be living, as Terry just said, as God. That's my message today. Now, thank you. I am so excited today because I get to share the stage with an amazing, amazing man who was a practitioner here, came that close to going into ministerial, but really we had this great come to Jesus moment. He came to me, and yeah, that was it. No, but we had this great moment, and both of us realized he is a minister. He is an amazing minister to the world. Now, before he comes up here, he had a workshop last summer called the Bigger Game Expo that he and his husband, Chuck, his 50-year-old husband, Chuck, how's that feeling? Speechless. He's speechless. He had the Bigger Game Expo, and I wrote on Facebook that it was the most incredible workshop, the most incredible week I'd ever been to. It trumped all of my Asilomars put together. It was just spectacular. I really implore you to go to the next one, which will be in some time in 2014. It is just amazing, and I will be there, so it will be just amazing. So at that expo, there were some amazing speakers. I mean, amazing speakers. And the young lady I'm about to bring up here for a few moments, she was, I believe she opened. She was the first speaker. And the moment I met her, I was like, oh my God, hi, good to see you again. I never met her, but I knew her. And she got up and spoke and just was brilliant. And she has this incredible company where it's called Lucid Living. And she does these incredible workshops where she gets you to teach the story of your life, to find the story in you, the piece of you, which after last night, it's so amazing. She's coming here in October. She will do a full-day workshop on Saturday. I implore you to take this. She goes all over the world with this workshop. She has so graciously agreed to come here and do it. She usually flies to, Maui into some gorgeous big hotel and does these big... She's coming here. And then on Sunday, she will be the guest speaker, and I will be here with her as the guest speaker. So I asked her, since she's here today, she came in to see Sissy Boy, I asked her if she would please come up and just say hello to you so you know who it is I'm talking about. Lisa Danley.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa. And I just thank you, James. Thank you so much. And I just first want to say what a joy it is to be welcomed into your sacred fellowship. I felt it from the moment I arrived, even last night, those of you whom I met here in the audience. I felt instantly that this was a loving, vibrant, alive, open-hearted community, and I'm so happy to meet you all and to join your family in the ways that I get to when I'm in town. So thank you. So James asked me just to spend a few minutes just to first say a couple words about what Lucid Living is, and then a couple words just about this one day of living your great story. So, from my point of view, we are living in the most exciting time in the history of human consciousness. And it is a time, the words get thrown around a lot of paradigm shift and new world emerging and all that, but sometimes those words lose their meaning. And it's difficult to know exactly what that means and how is that new world unfolding and what is my part in it? What is your part in it? And so 14 years ago, I started Lucid Living after years of training life coaches and coaching and that kind of thing. I decided to really commit to my spiritual work in the world, my path, to bring in a framework, to be able to teach a framework within which to understand this profound shift that's happening in the world and in human consciousness, and to then offer the necessary life skills to thrive in this new world and to know yourself as a co-creator with God. Because that is what we are all needing to step into. And, you know, there are seeds of greatness in all of us. And because of the distortions of the paradigm we've been living in, we've been taught to shy away from our greatness and to dismiss it and to either fear the hubris of it, because we've all had hubris and known what it's like to crash and burn and go, ouch, I don't ever want to get too close to thinking I have greatness within me again, because that didn't turn out too good. So, you know, sometimes we fear it in that way, and other times we just think, oh my God, greatness, what is that responsibility going to be? And so we don't know quite how to wear the mantle of greatness in a way that fits, in a way that feels elegant, in a way that feels natural and authentic. But that's what I'm doing with Living Your Great Story, because your greatness, you know, there are seeds of it throughout your story. And it's amazing, James, the synchronicity of Sissy Boy last night and watching you. I mean, if I had lots of time with all of you, wouldn't it be fun to look at the seeds of James's greatness that he revealed to us last night, in the challenges, in the hurdles, in the shame, in the pain, and out of it, the embrace of a journey to become someone who is open-hearted and changing your life every day, every week, in the ways that you allow him in. And each of us has that journey. Each of us has the seeds of greatness that are embedded in those incidents, in those challenges, in those incredible experiences of our life. We created them. We crafted those hurdles on a very specific journey of becoming who we're becoming. And so that's what the day is going to be about. It's going to be about really understanding your story in a fresh way, looking at it through a fresh lens, and getting comfortable inhabiting your greatness as never before. And what I was amazed when you said this morning that October, the theme is forgiveness. Did you say that? It's perfect, because just this morning in the shower I was thinking, you know, living your great story, there are so many doors that it opens, but one of the big ones is that you suddenly have the depth of understanding and compassion to forgive every wound, every trespass, every hurt. It suddenly all becomes clear why those things were there to help you become who you were destined to be. So it's a doorway to forgiveness, living your great story. And it's a doorway to then, you know, seeing and grabbing hold of that golden thread of your passion and your authenticity and having the courage to let it take you on the ride of your lifetime. So, you know, that's what it's really going to be about. It's going to be a really fun day with a lot of beauty and meaning, love-filled day. So I really hope you'll come and join us on that day. I look forward to having more time with all of you. And it's just a privilege. So thank you, and namaste.
I think there must be something in the water at my house. She's in her shower thinking about forgiveness. I was in my shower thinking about, oh my God, must be the water. So she is quite a gem, and I can't wait to go through that day. It'll be great. So now, Mr. Rick Tamlin. I would do a bio for Rick Tamlin, but you should just go online and look for him. He's pretty amazing, and he is one of my dearest, dearest, dearest friends in the world. And I know he has an incredible, incredible gift for us this morning. So let's just get to it, Mr. Rick Tamlin.
Good morning. I have to, you have your plan and then you have the reality of being with you. I just want to take you in for a moment because I do a lot of work out there in the world and I have to connect. So can we just go like this? Okay, good. That feels good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Up there. Oh, yes, right. Oh, wow. And for those of you that are in the other theater, hi. Okay, good. And the internet, oh my gosh. So I just want to connect a couple of dots this morning. First of all, Reverend James has been in my life 30 years, right? And then Lisa Danley has been in my life, again, probably an equal amount, but they never knew each other until the event that I created in upstate New York, the Bigger Game Expo that we did. And then to sit here this morning, and I know you've all had these moments where your worlds come together. You know that worlds come together moment? That's bigger than you could ever have dreamed. And it fills you to the point of absolute richness of pinch me. It truly is the moment when you feel one with all of it. And so the personal moment this morning is to have the two of you who are both of my spiritual advisors, guiders, and trainers. To have you in the same room and to feel this world come together is an absolute joy. So, and I know you all know Reverend James, and if you truly can go to Lisa's workshop, I've been studying with her for about 15 years myself, and to find that inner soul and activate it and really get clear is remarkable work. So what a joy. Thank you much. So my work in the world, I do travel a lot. I pretty much live on United Airlines. And I do a lot of leadership development. And as you can imagine, a lot of this type of thinking, I cannot help myself. It's woven in to the work that I do. And I work with large organizations and large companies and teams. And so I just wanted to give you that context and the underlying philosophy of all of it. And I know you're going to know this already. It's borrowed from Michelangelo. Michelangelo, the artist, believed that the sculpture lived within the stone, already complete and whole and perfect. We've all heard this, right? Some of you have heard this. And so my job as a trainer and as a speaker and as an author now is to actually reveal some of the outer layers of our thoughts and our ideas and our confusion, whatever we've got going on, to know that truth. Now that shows up in many forms. And so this morning I wanted to share with you a couple of ideas from the work that I do out in the organizational and leadership development world. And I was in New York just a couple weeks ago, and this is sort of the segue into it. I was getting off the subway, and I think it was New York. I think it was New York. You know where it says, the cities, oh gosh. You get off the subway, and it says, mind the gap. That's London too. I know it's in London. I've seen, they've started putting them all over. I look down, mind the gap. And it's such a great phrase that I've sort of grabbed onto it this week. When James says, what do you want to talk about? I said on Wednesday, I think mind the gap. Of course, I had no idea what I was going to talk about it. But it became a launch point. And what I realized as I bead with that topic, right? That it really means to be conscious of the space. To be conscious of the space. And a lot of the work I do out there is about closing the gap, because there's always a gap of what we have in our mind and then what we're actually experiencing. Now, the truth is, and we all know in this room, the gap is a lie. It's all God. There's no such thing as a gap. But the human mind, it's helpful sometimes to actually understand that let me start to close that gap. What does that look like just to close that gap? So I want to offer you this, a little bit of a science lesson this morning. You know what? Can I move this a little bit? That's okay. No, I get it. That's good. I can do. I'm okay, chapstick. We'll do a little chapstick, Susie chapstick moment. Oh, that feels better. Oh, that's lovely. Sissy boy is everywhere. It's just everybody wants to be one. I felt so left out. So, okay, back to the science lesson. So, this is borrowed from quantum physics, and I literally train this in rooms of IBM and HP, a lot of these major organizations. I train this concept. And if there was one concept I think that I would want for you is this idea. And I invite you into this perspective that this could be a life changer. You know, have this be like a bigger game concept that goes, wow, if I really understood this and really grappled with this could really change my life. So here's the idea. The terminology is space and particles. Space and particles. So the particles are the atoms, the molecules that are going on in this room. Right? So go like this. Hit yourself for a second. Nicely, gently. Right? This is the particle. This is the molecules of you, right? Clothing, all the stuff. Now here's the theory, and they've proven it, the physicist, that if you took all the space out in between all the particles, this entire room, all the atoms and molecules would fit into a teaspoon. Proven. This is quantum physics stuff, right? Now, the brain goes, how can that be? But some of you are nodding your head, you're scientists, that's good, I can tell. So the idea here is that there's 1 trillion times more space than there is correct. But where do we put our attention in life? Most of the time on the particles. Now, in science and mind language and spirituality language, that is like the form. I want a new fill in the blank. Car, relationship, right? We get caught in that consciousness of the stuff, right? And so this idea of where do we put our attention? And so when I train it in organizations, especially with leaders, because leaders are actually trying to manage, listen to the language, manage the particles. How many of you, by the way, are exhausted managing the particles of your life? You know, if that were different, and if I could change that, and then if that new car were, like if this were, and then I would feel the space of my life, and I then would feel this, right? It's sort of like backwards, but it's the drift of the human mind. It actually drifts over to the focus on the particles, and when I get them all figured out, then finally, you know, this is the problem with retirement. I don't mean to, but it's becoming, honey, I don't mean to, like, we're getting closer, but, you know, it's getting a little overrated, right? When I have all those pieces handled, then I get to live this life that I've been dreaming up, right? I dare say in our country, retirement is over. That arc is over. It is now expression of ourselves in a different form. That's what it wants to become. That's a whole different conversation. I could go off on that tangent for 20 minutes. I won't. So, space and particles. Get the idea? Let me offer a couple of other sort of distinctions with it. So, space, be, particles, do. Be, do. We've all heard that terminology. Emotions, space, behaviors, particles. Attitude, space, action, particles. Career, I'm going to now go the other way. Career, career, thinking of our careers. Education system. What's my major? Particle. What's my career? Particle. Instead of what's my calling? Space. What's my calling? A very different consciousness, a very different way to be in the world. Grabbed a couple of other ones this morning. We talked about form and function. And this one I want to say Lisa Danley gave me this years ago. Changed my life. Form follows function. We think if we get the form right, then I'll be happy. It's actually, what's my function in the world? And then let me see what the form is that wants to find me. Last night, James, you're so clear about your role as a space. I'm going to kind of use some jargon. You are so clear while you're here on this planet. And the forms just keep coming. right? You started out as an actor, then a singer, and then a dancer, and then a bongo drummer, and then a, what was the thing you had to learn? Then you learned how to click your fingers. I mean, it was just like, the forms were just going like this, and they're not done, right? That's the thing for all of us. It's never done. The form wants to keep coming through us forever and ever and ever until our last breath on this earth. And by the way, I've decided that it goes beyond this. We all know this. But that we get caught in the angst of the particle to try to figure it out instead of let the form find me. Bigger game. I do this workshop called Playing a Bigger Game. There's a book coming out October 1st with Hay House. By the way, let me just sort of use that as an example. I've been running around the world, talking about playing a bigger game, and what that really means is the space of me. What is the expression of me that wants to happen out into the world, right? And I've been dying to sort of get it out there on a bigger scale. I don't need to go into the long story, but, I started to get really strategic. You know how you get, strategic thinking? IBM, they're very strategic, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do this, and then we'll have that. It doesn't work like that, right? So the bottom line is, started to get really clear about the message, started to put it out there. And of course, Hay House, not of course, but I want to say, yes, of course. Hay House, big publishing firm, found it. Said, we've heard this thing, we want to publish you. And I was like, wow, there it is. I got clear finally about the job and the space of me. And then somebody said, we want to now bring it out to the world. Rather than going to get them, is how many of you notice you're trying to get something figured out? And then again, some lucid living language that I learned I want to share with you. I'll do something to get something, versus express myself fully and receive the love that wants to come back my way. Do to get, particle-based, express and receive, space. Kind of feel the essence of the difference of that. And we get caught in that doing context a lot, right? So, the truth of the matter is, there's no gap. There really is no gap. It's all God. We know this in this room. So, another way to kind of talk about this and think about this, and this is language about how to bring this and experience this in your life more, is to create, this is jargon. Hang with me on the jargon. Create from versus react to. React to is a particle-based phenomenon. This is the land of voting. Voting. How many, I wish that didn't happen. Anybody, right? I wish that had gone different. And when that goes that way, that's the react to consciousness. Instead of the create from way of going through life. That's actually being in the flow. And to your example, James, you absolutely are a create from guy. Life happens, you blend it into your life, and then you create something from it. Now, this is one of the most distinguishing qualities of senior leaders, the ability to create from what's happening rather than trying to manage what's happening. Feel that difference, right? So, I guess what I want to really say, and I know I've said a lot about this space and particle thing, is we get so caught up in the doing, in the trying to figure it out. Instead of, I'm here to express myself in a way that is fun and compelling, and let it find me, and let me express myself in my fullest, most passionate and compassionate way. Because that's our job here, is we come to this planet for a reason. We come here to express ourselves, and we come here to make this difference. By the way, play a bigger game. And then we receive back all the bounty that wants to come with it. So, I did want to share with you, there's one other, I wanted to tell this little story. Oh yeah, here's how many of you have ever been to an Apple store? Right? Such a great example, by the way, of space and particles. Really. So here's the particle. I'm a big Apple fan. I use them a lot in organizations as examples of this kind of work. They were in the computer business. Y'all remember they were in the computer business, right? Failing miserably, losing against Microsoft, losing against Dell, tanking, right? Steve Jobs comes back in about 15, 16 years ago now, and he says, here's the deal. We can no longer be in the computer business. We've lost. And he changes the consciousness. He changes the space of the entire organization. And he announces out loud, we're now in the entertainment business. He changes the consciousness of the organization in one sentence. What do? They go off and create iTunes, and they create iMovie, and they do everything in the entertainment. Now what are they doing? They're selling more computers than they've ever sold. They're the largest company in the world. That one space change completely shifted the dynamic of the thinking and the creativity of the organization. And now when we go in the store, right, we go in that store, it's like, oh my God, it's like a Zen experience, right? They're now studying, by the way. I found this fascinating. I read this the other day in Wall Street Journal, I think it was. When you go to the mall, right, you walk by the Apple store, and you're not planning on going to the Apple store. How many of you ever walked in and you weren't planning to go? Right? You're just like, you're in. Like, how did that happen? They're now studying that as a phenomenon. Of course, they want to particleize it and measure it, right? Which is totally immeasurable, but it's an energy, right? They're actually selling an energy. And so I'm speaking to all of us today because that's what we are. We are an energy. We are a space first, trying to figure out the particles, and we drift. This is the part I want to really be transparent about this morning with all of you. I fail at this. I start to try to manage my life. My partner and I are living in upstate New York right now. It's a beautiful location. Here's the truth. There is nobody around. The Walmart is a mile away. Okay, this is a really irreverent moment. Can I go really irreverent for a moment? Okay, good. Oh, God. So the game we play, okay, this is, oh no, I can't do this. Okay, last night you said lots of bad things up here. But it is Sunday. No, it's a little irreverent game that Chuck and I play to kind of keep ourselves engaged in this place that there's nobody around in the middle of winter and snow is up to our, Truth is, we don't really want to be there in the winter. But anyway, we play this game at Walmart to count and guess how many people will be in carts that are motorized carts. And then we come out to the car, and then we see who won. And, okay, see how small our life has gotten? It's like... Honey, we got a problem. It's really, we need to move. So I have no idea why I told you that story, but no, I told you that story because here's the deal, right? I forget, and he's actually better with this than me. I am trying to manage it. I'm trying to figure it out. Like, well, we have a house here in Los Angeles, by the way, that we've had for years, upstate New York. We don't need to go into the long story, but it's like, you know that part of us? I bet you all have it. If I can just figure that out, and then I'll figure that out, and then that'll happen. And if I get it right, then I'll be able to sell it, and then we'll retire on the house, and then I can refinance. And you know that part of us that does that? Anybody? Are you having a little meltdown? Me too, right? I'm like, oh my God, it's like, Jesus, Mother of God, what's happening, right? And then Chuck says, you're obsessing, and I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm trying to figure it out. Save us some money. It just doesn't work, right? I mean, it's a spin that just goes off into a territory that does not serve. And the beautiful thing about a community like this, and I was one of the founding members of this community, and so to see here today with a absolutely full room and knowing there's other folks down the way, what you've created, I miss it wildly. So we have to figure this out, honey. Houston, we got a problem. So I don't know how much time I got left, but oh, God. So you get it, right? That part of us that forgets. And so one of the other key concepts that I talk out there a lot about is the ability to recover back to my best self. That's the jargon out in the world of corporate that I lead. But to return back to our true self, to our spiritual self. What is it that we need to do to remember to bring us back? Now, spiritual mind treatment is one way. But I invite you all to think about for yourself this week, what is it? What's the practice? What's the daily practice? What's the thinking? What's the phone call you need to make? What's the support? In bigger game jargon, what's the ally that you need to lean into to bring you back to the truth of who you are? To remember that we are absolute co-creators of our world, that we are the force to be reckoned with in the manifestation of it all. Because I forget, and then I drift and try to manage it. And the big distinction that's so powerful out there right now is we have a lot of managers who think they're leaders. Leaders lead the space. Managers manage the particles. Now that's a distinction I invite you to go share with people. And our president, if you look at the big leaders of our world, they get caught between that. Right? They got to handle the situation, that's the particles, and then they sort of lead us in the energetic of the future and design to dare a dream, be a dream for us in the future. And they're always bouncing between those two worlds. And here's the thing, I've used the word leadership a lot with all of you today, but I hope you've heard that we are all leaders. This is not just a role that you've gotten that somebody said you're a leader. You are the manifester of your life, therefore you're a leader. That's what's true. So, have at it. Remember the space of you first. Again, here's the theory. When you get the space sort of lined up, like you feel good about it, you're sort of, actually, I want to be careful I say it that way. You don't always have to feel good about it. We've had a little bit of an addiction to feeling good all the time. You just feel authentic and true and integrous with what you're feeling. That's what I'm learning these days. If I'm upset, to your point this morning, James, if I'm upset, let me be authentic and be in the space of it cleanly, know that it's God, and it will actually then pass through me. The other thing that leaders do when this is where it goes awry and makes a mess, is when they actually try to, the space, by the way, is all, this just happened recently. I was in a workshop last week in Minneapolis leading for a giant organization, and they had to deliver some really bad news. But the space is really like dark. It's not happy, right? And they're sort of, then they bring this sort of pretty, happy, delivery on top of it. Like, it's all going to be okay, everybody. It's really good. It's what's happening. And the room is like, are you kidding me? So it's out of integrity. It's incongruous. So as I step into this work and do more and more of this is not about actually just sort of prettying up my thoughts. What it is about getting in integrity with my thoughts, knowing they're all God because I'm a human being. I have this range of the human experience. And as soon as I get in touch with what I'm really feeling, then it can pass through me and shift the space. Because what we resist persists. My only thing, when I started with Science of Mind years ago, the part where it got distorted for me, and it was probably my perspective, by the way, was it had a tiny, for me, it had a little bit of just kind of like, be on top of or pretty up your thoughts. And that's what I love, James, is you have so taken it beyond that. It is not about that. Because if all my emotions are God's, then there's no bad one. There's no such thing. So, what I know is you are divine. What I know is you are the rock, the sculpture within the rock already done and perfect. And my job is to sort of reveal and chip away all those particles and reveal the space that you really are, that we really are. That's our job. And I implore you to reach out for help. That's the other thing that I notice about great leaders is when they know they need help, they reach out. That's why the book right now, I'm forgetting her name. Who wrote Lean In? Lean In. Thank you, Sheryl Sandberg, who is the CEO of Facebook. Thank you. Love co-creating with you. That's what's so great, right? When you live in a co-created world, you don't always have to know. You just don't have to know. Knowing, by the way, a little overrated. Knowing the truth of who we are, the space of who we are, but we don't need to know the particle. Right? So, anyway, that's why this book is so popular. Leaning in. Lean into each other. Lean into each other as a community, into our friends, into our loved ones, and reach out and ask for the help you need. So, speaking of that, Facebook, thank you for the Facebook segue, perfect. I want to close with this Facebook posting that was on my site a day ago by a dear friend of mine who lives here in LA. She and I used to wait tables at the Cheesecake Factory restaurant. Speaking of which, oh God, just have to have a moment about that. So, oh God, talk about space and particles. Have you ever seen a Cheesecake Factory ad in your life? There is no marketing budget. No television, no newspaper. Unless there's, did you say you saw one? Curious, where did you see it? In print, you saw something. Okay, good. So they finally stepped in and said, for years, never anything. Here's the thing. That guy, David Overton, he's in the book. I do this big thing on him in the new book. Talk about getting the space right. He got the space right. He studied at Disney about energy and light and sound, and he walked around the restaurant with a sound meter one night. We opened up the restaurant in Washington, D.C., and it was 25 years ago, the second one. It was full within 5 minutes with no advertisement. And I thought, okay, what is that about? That's about the consciousness of his own thinking and getting it right, getting that space right. And then when we get the space right, we just are magnets towards it. That's what happens. So I got a little what's the word when I digress? Oh my God, I'm a trainer and I don't even know how to say digress. Okay, here's what it said. And this is from my dear friend Kay Bess. Every day we slaughter our finest impulses. That is why we get a heartache when we read those lines written by the hand of a master and recognize them as our own, as the tender shoots which we stifled because we lacked the faith to believe in our own powers, our own criterion of truth and beauty. Every man and woman, when he gets quiet, when he becomes desperately honest with himself, is capable of uttering profound truths. We all derive from the same source. There is no mystery about the origin of things. We are all part of creation. All kings, all poets, all musicians, all artists. We have only to open up to discover what is already there. Henry Miller. So, thank you folks this morning. It was just a pleasure to be with you here this morning. Just remember, space first, particle second. Truly, when the going gets tough, go inside and go, okay, what's the space of me? The space of me is God. The space of me is a manifester of my reality. That's the space. And let the particles find their way towards you. Namaste. God bless you.